Welcome to the channel. So let me just start off right now and say that there will be chapters in this video because I expect this one to be a kind of a long video. So you feel free to skip around to the part that makes sense for you, rewatch it, absorb the information. I'm going to try to put as much as I can with this video. So I have a couple of goals here. The goal here is to ultimately help you become a better Tekken player. Now, I've seen my share of frame data videos over the years, and now that my channel has grown a bit thanks to folks like yourself, I felt it only right to create my own frame data video on my own channel. But not only that, I also want to show you the beginning concepts of conditioning your opponent. I want to show you aspects of punishment and also how to initiate trades that happen to be in your favor that can lead to some very surprising rewards. So hopefully you get something out of this video. I'm gonna basically look at this as if you are sitting right next to me, especially as how I have the camera positioned, because I will be looking ahead to my big 55-inch screen. So I'll look over here as if I'm talking to you, as if you're sitting right next to me. So I guess with all that being said, if you happen to learn something, do the typical YouTuber thing. Please like, comment your thoughts, as well as if you're not already subscribed, hopefully this video will be the one that happens to earn your subscription. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm not going to do a ton of editing for this video because it's very important for you to become very familiar with practice mode, because the fact of the matter is, if you want to get better at this game, Tekken 8 specifically, or any fighting game in general, you're gonna have to understand frame data. Like, there's just no real way around it. So I'm gonna have initially Paul and Law on the screen, because pretty much everybody knows Paul and Law if you're playing Tekken. So that's kind of like, pretty beginner level characters, So let's go to the stage. I like the music. I like the tune I have on the stage, actually. All right. So what are we going to do first? So typically what I tend to do first is I go here, I go to punishment settings, I go to record, and I just have my dummy here do a 1-2 punch combination. I do that specifically because 9 times out of 10, the preferred mash in terms of somebody just pressing buttons is going to be a standing 1 or left punch, or a 1-2, which is a left punch, right punch, right? So that's typically most people's go-to when it comes to mashing. So then you would go to action after hit or block, you set it to punish. So if I use opponent action, set them to block. So basically they're gonna block, they're gonna punish, and they're gonna punish after one action, and they're going to do the action I just recorded, and it will look like this. So you see Law is just gonna mash. So now that we've already established that, that's how I generally set up my practice settings. For now, let's turn him off, right? Let's turn off the punishment setting for now. And what we're gonna do now is you take a standing left punch, right? Just like in boxing. If you're an orthodox fighter, you got your standing jab, right? So Paul, you got standing 1, right? Now, if you notice, what you're gonna look at, pay attention to where it says attack startup frames and frame advantage. Now, you see the attack startup is 10-10, okay? The number that is after the dash, I'll cover that more in detail, but just know that is referred to as active frames. So you don't need to worry about that just yet. So let's just focus on the, take this hat off. So let's just focus on just the first number, which is 10, right? So in Tekken, 9 times out of 10, the fastest move in the game is 10 frames. Now, there are a few exceptions with the Yoshimitsu Flash. If you don't know what the hell that even is, don't worry about it. But typically, anything that is faster than a 10 frame attack in Tekken is usually the exception to the rule. Generally speaking, 10 frames is going to be your de facto fastest move. So let's just establish that right away. Okay. So going back to Paul here, you see standing one is 10 frames. Now you also see when that move makes contact on law, you see it shows +1 for frame advantage. But if you also look on the second player side, it shows the same number, but it's in red, and it's -1. So the way I look at this, and I encourage you to do the same, is look at it as a coin, right? You have your heads and tails, right? Two sides of the same coin, you've heard, right? So on one side of the coin, heads, I'm +1. The underside of the coin, tails, he's -1. So what that means is that if Law happens to press the same attack as I'm doing right now, it will basically be a counter hit. I will beat him to the punch every single time. So this is what I'm going to do to demonstrate that. We're going to go back into the settings and we're going to select action after hit. We're going to select that and put it to punish. So now he's going to do what we programmed him to do earlier, right? He's going to mash, okay? So you can see on his side, it shows 10 and then 12. That's because his left punch is 10 and his right punch follow-up is 12 frames. So we're only concerned with the first attack. So if I do, so as you can see, just to establish this, he attacks me as soon as I attack him. Now, if I do a standing one and another standing one immediately after, you're going to see it's going to stop his attack and it looks just like this. So you saw how I just said counter, counter, counter. So that's what's happening when the opponent is trying to throw the same frame attack as you, but you have any sort of frame advantage, whether that's 1 or 10, it doesn't matter. As long as you have at least one frame of advantage that you've established, whether it was by landing an attack or by placing an attack on your opponent's defense. So as long as you have that, typically your attack is going to win out against your opponent. And I'll show it again. As you can see, it's going to be a counter. Now, if I throw a slower attack, now let's say if I respond with Paul's down forward 1, as you can see, this is 14 frames, right? 14-14. This is what happens to me. So you see now it's a counterattack for him because the 14 frame attack is too slow to deal with Law's retaliation. But again, if I stick with my 10 frame attack, I will always win out. It doesn't matter. I will always win out every single time. Okay, so now that we've established that, I hope that's pretty clear. So let's move on to a different, just same frame advantage, but let's just change it up a little bit. Now, in this same situation, we're gonna do Paul's back, like just walking back and hit the right kick button, whatever you have that set as, but we, in the community, we refer to this as 4. So just to kind of be clear, left punch is 1, right punch is 2, left kick is 3, and right kick is 4. So 1, 2 is left punch, right punch, and so on and so forth. So that's the language right there. So there you are. You're already an expert in the Tekken lingo. So if I do back 4 with Paul, which is also a very good low attack, by the way. So this move, as you can see, it comes out at 20 frames. So it's a 20 frame attack, and I have +4 advantage on hit. Never mind the +3. That's basically what happens by blocking Law's retaliation. So to be clear, let's just take him off punish so you can see clearly. So I'm +4 on this attack. +4. All right, now. So what that means now is any attack I follow up after this move that is under 14 frames is going to win out. So how do you find this out? Okay, whatever character you're using, you go in the lab and you go through all of your character's attacks and you look at where it says attack startup, and then you look to see what attacks do you have in this situation is 13 frames. So let's look at Paul. Paul, down forward 1, too slow because it's 14 frames. Down forward 2 is 15. We're not going to do that. We can do standing right kick. That's 12 frames. We can do back 1. We can do that. That's 12 frames. Back 4 is too slow, but actually we'll get to back 4 in a moment. So let's just start off with back 1 and standing right kick. Okay, so let's put them to punish, and you're going to see what's going to happen here, right? So now we're going to do back 4, standing right kick. So you see that was a counter. Do it again, and you can follow up with whatever you see fit. So you can follow up with that if you want. We'll cover follow-ups in a later section. So another move that we can do that is also 12 frames, we can do back 1. Well, in Paul's case, Paul has the combination of back 1, 2. So it can look like this. So as you can see, it's a counter hit, it's 2 hits, it's 33 damage. You do it again. Okay. So for now, let's look at another variation of a frame advantage situation with Paul, and let's look at his up forward 2, which is actually a very strong move for Paul, since in the season 2, you can actually dash afterwards, which is very, very good, but we're not going to get into the weeds with that. So just his up forward 2, as you can see, it is a high attack. You can duck it. It does 7 chip damage. It's a heat engager. It comes out at 22 frames, and most importantly for this example, he is +5 on block. Now with being +5, just as I said in the prior segment, if you do a 14 frame attack with Paul and under, right up until 10 frames, you will beat out Law's retaliation. Now, of course, if you do a 15 frame attack, that attack will trade, but we're going to cover trades in a little bit, so just bear that in mind. So again, just a general rule of thought, if you like for instance, if you have a +8 situation, that generally means that if you do an 18 frame attack, that 18 frame attack will likely trade with your opponent, assuming, of course, they are doing a 10 frame attack themselves. Now, sure, your opponent can do a slower attack, which is better for you because that would just mean that your slowest attack will beat them out. But just to keep things uniformed, we're going under the assumption that our opponent is always going to retaliate with a 10 frame attack. So in that situation, if you are +8, whether on block or on hit, if you do an 18 frame attack, you will be traded. So if you want to utilize your advantage, it has to be 17 frames and under. How do you figure that out? Just like I said before in the last segment, you go through your opponent, your character, and find out what attacks they have and at what speed those attacks are. So going back to this example of up forward 2, we have a +5 situation. So basically, all I'm really doing in my head, basic arithmetic, is if I have +5, I'm adding 10 on top of that, which lets me know that if I do a 15 frame attack, it's going to trade. If I go 1 frame under and below, everything else is going to basically be as a counter hit. So that would mean, if we look at Paul's 14 frame attacks, we have, let me see, we have, what do we have for Paul? I think we have, okay, so we have back 1, that's 12. Gosh, what is Paul's? It's been a while for me. Okay, we have, oh, this is a 13 frame attack. I could have used that in the last example. Okay. But anyway, we'll circle back around to that because we're just doing this just live. It's been a while. Okay, so 14, right? We have down forward 1, which is 14 frames. Okay, so we're going to set Law back to punish, and you're going to see that of course, he's going to retaliate. So what we're going to do, we're going to do our 14 frame, and you're going to see that it's going to land on counter hit, right? You do down forward 1, 1. The string for this will be down forward 1, 1, 2, right? So the first two are going to be natural and hit. So you can see I'm just going to win out on him. Now, if I happen to do a slower attack, let's say if I want to do, let's say, what's a slow? If I do forward 3, which is 16 frames, that means I'm going to get hit. So it's basically just a rule of thumb, like I said, whatever your plus frame advantage is. So if it's plus 4, just add 10 on top of that, and you'll get 14. Then just use whatever attack you have that's 1 frame less, right? So I just hope that that's clear. So if you are in a plus 4 situation, add 10 on top of that, giving you 14. And if you do a 14 frame attack, chances are you will trade. If you want to take advantage of your plus frames, do 1 frame under. So in that situation, it was 14. So you do 13. So just to illustrate that, again, back 4, that's a 13 frame attack. If I would have done 14 a frame, I'm just hammering. That's why I'm repeating myself. I want people to understand. If I did a 14 frame attack in that situation, it would have traded. So hopefully this is getting more and more clear. Like I said, I'm trying to show as if you are sitting right here with me, because a lot of times people don't get it on the first try, especially when it comes to frame data, and even more especially when they're completely new. So one last time, plus 4, right? Add 10 on top of that. The 10, in case you're wondering, is the 10 frame attack the opponent is likely to do. So you add the 10 to whatever your advantage is. So if it was plus 5, it becomes 15. If it's plus 8, it becomes 18. Simple math. And then what you end up doing is you can decide to do an 18 frame attack if you have the plus 8 advantage. It's up to you if you're trying to go for the trade. Again, if your opponent happens to do a slower attack, that's even better for you. But we're looking at it from that standpoint that the opponent is not going to do that. So now let's go over in this other section, because I like to think we have a better understanding of just the general understanding of the frame attacks in general, right? I would like to think we do, but again, we'll just show, just for reference purposes, we do a 4-2, Paul is plus 5, right? So that means, right, if we do a 13 frame attack, it's going to work. If we do a 1-2, it's going to work. If we do a back 1, it's going to work. Why? Because those moves are all underneath, they're all 14 frame and under. Now, just to show you real quick what a trade looks like, right? So if I was plus 5 right here on this move, if I do a 15 frame attack, you're going to see we're going to trade, but I still get the juggle. So with that being said, now let's move on to trades. So I'm hoping that you understood that last section. I apologize for repeating myself, but like I said, I've dealt with some people that you kind of have to explain it to people, and I know you could probably rewind the video, that's fine, but I'm looking at it as if you're sitting here with me. You know, you're getting the first-hand experience, so to speak. So let's get into trades, right? So trades is something I pride myself on because I'm very good at finding what good trades are. And Paul has quite a few. So if we're looking at, again, back 4, which is an amazing move, as I shown you in the last segment, this is plus 4. So what do? We look and see, what does Paul have that's 14 frames, right? So Paul forward 2, nope, that's 13. Standing right kick, that's 12. What does he have? Down forward 4, that's too slow. That's 17. Ah, look at that. We have back 3. That's 14 frames. So like I said, if you're plus 4 and your opponent is retaliating with a 10 frame attack, 10 plus 4 is 14. If my next move is a 14 frame attack, this is what that's going to look like. Now look at that. I got the trade. And then after that, all you have to do now is just follow through with a combo, and it potentially looks like this. So, add whatever combo you want, but you get the picture. Now, we could have simply gone with another 14 frame attack, which is down forward 1, because that's 14, the same as back 3, even though back 3 is 14-15, but I'll cover the 15 later. So this is what that could look like. So look at that. Now, even though I won out on the trade, doing 13 damage to Law's 6, but that's not really the trade we want. At least not for me. If I'm going to do a trade with somebody, I'm going to do a trade that's going to be highly beneficial for me. And the best trade under those circumstances is going to be Paul's back 3, and we're going to do it again. Now, at this point, all you have to do is just find the optimal move to pick up Law off the ground as he's being stunned to the ground and finish off your combo. And for me, I find that down forward 4 just serves that purpose, right? So back 3, down forward 4. That's always going to work. There are other things, I believe maybe you can run in with a standing 3, but I could do that, but it's up to personal preference or what have you. Typically, the trades are very, very strong with characters. I just think that it is something that is well worth your time. So what I want to show you are a couple of other examples of trades that you can use with different characters. Of course, finding out if a move is a good trade will take a little bit of time in the lab, but I think it's well worth your time investment. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you one of my absolute favorite trades, especially with me being primarily a Raven player in this game, considering that my character Lei Wulong is not in this game. So this is a very good trade as far as I'm concerned. So we still have Law that's still going to be mashing his 1-2 combination. So with Raven specifically, if you are in back turn, now this is arguably one of my favorite moves, is back turn, which is back in both kicks. And then while you're back turn, you do standing left kick. As you can see, that left kick is 10 frames. It's basically the same as a jab, right? So really the string is back turn 3, 4, 4, okay? But we're only going to be focusing on the first 2 parts. So you're going to see Law is going to mash, okay? Law mashes. Now if I do back turn 3 and 4, you see it trades, right? Now pay close attention to the attack, to the frame data, to the frame advantage. You see it shows 15. So what I can do at this point is, now that I know that this move is giving me that level of trade, it's giving me plus 15. So what do I do? What moves do I have as Raven that's going to be 15 frames and under? Okay, so for Raven, I can look at standing 3, which is 14, 15. 14 being the earliest frame the attack is going to land. I can look at standing right kick. I could do that. Down forward 2, that's 16. That's too slow. So basically, that's generally what you're doing. You're looking from all of your character's moves to see what attacks your character has that will take advantage of that trade that you just discovered. So for me, that is pretty easy. I can do down back 2, 1. Why? Because Raven's down back 2 is 13 frames, 13, 14. Now, there are other things you can do with Raven. For instance, you could do his 14 frame 1+2 attack. Well, actually depends. It depends. Because some characters this will work. So this is where experimentation helps, because depending on the character, you will have certain moves that might work, but then other characters it won't. So you can try to find a universal option. So the universal option for me and most Ravens will be down back 2, 1. Like so far, this works on every single character. Doesn't matter the character, this trade will always work. So that is definitely something to bear in mind. Another good trade, I would say, and this really isn't too practical, but it definitely is well worth mentioning, is when you do Raven's forward 3. As you can see, this is a 13 frame attack on hit. It makes it on it's on contact. However, if I were to hold the opposite direction, and basically it'll look like this, and Raven will go back to the back turn stance, you see that on contact, the attack becomes, let's take him off punish, it becomes +3. Now remember what I said. If they're retaliating with a 10 frame attack, what does that mean? If I'm +3, that's right. You add 10 and 3 and it becomes 13. And isn't that knee 13 frames? So this is what this is going to look like. Oh, let's put him back to punish. Knee, knee. Now you see that? I'm +17 at this point. Now I can do a lot with this. Now I have access to forward right kick. As you can see, now I have access to that if I wanted to do that. I could also do down forward right punch with Raven in this situation. As you can see, that's a full combo right there. So you can combo as you see fit. So this is why I say it is very important to understand your frames and to understand what moves are ideal to get a purposeful trade on. A purposeful trade. You know, and then the only way that you're going to know this is you having the understanding in this situation with Raven. If I land this attack and I go back turn and my opponent is just going to just mindlessly try to mash, I know if I do the follow-up knee, I'm going to get a 17 frame trade. So you have to, with your own character, figure out what attacks are going to give you those type of scenarios, and then you're going to have to figure out what move is going to best utilize that situation, because every character is different. I have not covered every single character, but I do know that there are characters in the game that do very well with trades. Let me try to show you another scenario. So I've swapped over to the Queen, or Nina Williams, and so there was actually something else I forgot to show at the very beginning of this video. Is when it comes to setting up your punishment, yes, you do set up your 1-2 combination, but I forgot also to set up something for a crouch state. So now here's something that is very important to realize. Most characters in this game, their fastest response from a while standing situation is an 11 frame attack. Okay, so we just set up Law to do his. So as you can see, the startup is on his side 11-12. Now that's very important because that kind of alters some of the rules that I've basically stated at the very beginning, where your opponent's retaliation is going to be coming out at 10, most likely, right? But from a crouch state, if you put your opponent in a crouch state, like let's say for instance with this being Nina, if you land a down back 3 low attack, your opponent is forced into a crouch state. So Law's next attack, the fastest move he has is 11 frames. So under normal circumstances, with this move being +4, the down back 3 from Nina, if he was not forced into a crouch state, that would mean I would have to utilize a moves that are 13 frames and faster to beat out Law's next attack. But because his while standing is coming out at 11 and not 10, that means I can use an attack that's a little bit faster. And in this situation, I can now go for a trade with forward 3. As you can see with Nina, the startup is 14 frames. Now, actually no, correction, it's not going to be a trade, it's going to land on counter hit. So that's what it's going to look like this. Now, this is very, very devastating. If you are fighting a Nina player and you get hit with this attack, a Nina player would love nothing more for you to mash on that. They would love it because this, like, it's gonna be a bad time for you. It's definitely gonna be a bad time, I will say, and it can get a lot worse. So this is why knowing frame advantage is so key, because you'll know, or you'll have a better idea when not to press something, because you're gonna know that it's gonna be bad for you if you mash. So in this situation, normally this would have been a trade. It would have been a trade. However, because it's not due to the fact that Law's while standing attack is going to be 11 frames, let me show you the difference if this was Lee. Let's go and pick Lee, because Lee Chaolan, and I know a lot of the Lee fans are actually making it appear that Lee is the worst character in this game, but Lee is still very, very strong. We're going to set Lee up to do his while standing. So it's important for you to recognize this, because Lee and Lei Wulong are the only characters that have a while standing attack that's 10 frames. So as you can see, Lee's, it shows 10-12. Now under the same circumstance, you're going to see Nina's forward 3 is now going to trade. As you can see, it traded, but it doesn't matter, because as you see, I have the insane frame advantage of 50. So I can still get my full combo on. So it really doesn't matter. So this is where, like, things like understanding properties and how plus you are, and utilizing attacks that your character has that are in line with the frame advantage that you currently have is key, because you're either going to do a move that's going to win out clean against your opponent, or you're going to go for the trade. So in this situation, we're going to go for the trade, because I could have just done a down forward 1, and that will just win out clean, because the down forward 1 is coming out at 13 frames. But because I want more, in this situation, I'll go for the forward 3. Now, typically, well, this will not work as a trade, because like I said, Lee and Lei are the exceptions when it comes to having an attack that is, while standing, 10 frames. Most characters in this game, as I've said prior, is 11 frames. So that's why if this was another character, if we go to, let's go, who should we go to? Let's pick Nina herself. Yeah, let's pick Nina. Let's pick Nina. And yeah, so Nina, her while standing is in line with everybody else. So we'll set that up. We'll set up her 1-2 as well. Why not? While she's here on the screen, give her a 1-2, and then afterwards we will scroll down to crouching punishment. We will give her the while standing 4. As you see, it's 11-12. So under that same circumstance, this will win out clean. Now, what move does Nina have that's 15, right? So it will be, so you see, that is now a trade. That is now a trade. And it's a trade because the while standing attack she has, it's 11 frames. So if you simply add, right, this is +4, and you add 11, you get 15. Again, it goes back to the earlier thing. So just think of it that way. If you don't take nothing else from this video, just understand that whatever your frame advantage, whatever the number says on frame advantage, just add, if she's standing, just add 10. And if you know that the attack is putting them in a while standing position, add 11 frames. Unless you're fighting Lee Chaolan, and then you just keep it 10 regardless. because like again, he's the character that has a 10 frame while standing 3. So that's how we get to that number of 15 as the trade. If you were to do this particular attack, which is 20 frame low in down back left kick, plus 4, her fastest move from the while standing position is going to be 11. So that means we just add 11 to 4. That adds up to 15. 15 being a down forward 2. That trades and we get our combo. This is where you labbing your character is going to pay off. So that's pretty much how you establish your trades. And hopefully that makes sense. If you have any other questions about that, don't be shy. Leave it in the comments section. I will definitely get back. So let's move on to the next segment. So one additional thing I want to explain that is very important when it comes to trades is that not all trades are going to work on every single character. So if you happen to find a very good trade, it might be time consuming to try that trade against every single character in the game. It's going to be time consuming, but it's going to be worth it, because one trade that might work on one character may not work on another. So I'm going to show you a very good example of this right now with these characters on screen. Now, against some characters, this will work. If you do while standing 4-4 with Eddie, as you can see, the advantage becomes +8. Now, I cannot do anything with this, right? So basically, I'm having Law respond with a 1-2 combination, right? 1-2. So if I do while standing 4-4, it will trade, but I'm +8. Now, this is gonna surprise you. And if you're an Eddie user and you probably never knew this, you might want to stick around. So we're gonna go to Steve Fox. Where's Steve Fox at? Okay, we're gonna go to Steve. And you're gonna see something that's gonna be very, very interesting. So we're gonna have Steve do the same thing. We're gonna have him respond with a 1-2. Right? So a 1-2 jab. Okay, now we're gonna have him do the exact same thing. Now look at that. You notice that? My frame advantage is now 13. Now again, what do we have with Eddie Gordo that is 13 frames and under? Well, Eddie has standing 2, right? You can do 2-3, right? But standing 2 is 12, okay? Back 1 is too slow, it's 14. We do have back 3, right? That's 13, that'll work. But we also have down forward 1. And if we know Eddie, we know that if we connect down forward 1, down forward 1, 3 will work. So it'll look like this. That's all guaranteed. And if you want extra, that's pretty much all guaranteed. So if you're an Eddie user and you're fighting against Steve Fox, hey, if you do this, be sure to give me a shout out. Unless this is widespread knowledge, I don't know. But it is interesting. There's probably some reasons as to why this works on Steve. You know, it could be anything. You know, it could be something as simple as maybe Steve's 1-2 is 10-10. Maybe let me go back to Law. Maybe I can just look at this right now. So we know that Steve's 1-2 is 10-10 for both punches. Let me look at Nina. Let's look at Nina. Let's look at Nina real quick. I believe Nina is a 10-10. So we're gonna find this out. So this is what you're gonna have to do. That's why I'm not skipping I'm not editing anything out. This is exactly the type of work that you need to put into if you want to be successful at Tekken. And it's going to be boring, it's going to be monotonous, just like you watching this video is boring and monotonous, but this is what you're going to have to do to get better at the game. And I can't stress it enough. So Nina is doing her jab. Her 1-2 is 10-10, just like Steve. So that should mean that this setup will work on Nina as well. See, now look at that. This is where you have to practice. So again, just because we just ruled it out, see, we just did that in real time. We figured out that for whatever reason, Steve Fox's 1-2 is 10-10, and so is Nina's. But for whatever reason, it could be the animation, it could be her hurt box, it could be any number of things. But for whatever reason, this setup here gives me 13 against Steve, but it gives +8 against Nina. Even though Nina and Steve, they both do a 10-10 startup for their jabs, for their 1-2. Law, you can make the argument, that's why we did the process of elimination, right? Laws is 10-12. So I was thinking maybe, okay, maybe his right punch coming out at 12 frames, that might be the reason. But now we know. So like I say, if you do find a trade with your character against another character, be sure to practice that same trade against everybody else and make note of who it works against and who it doesn't. So when you come across that particular situation, whereas in this case it would be Eddie, and if you go against a Steve user, you know, if you get, you know, if you do the while setting 4-4 and they happen to break out mash, you know, against Steve, you have this for guarantee. You have that as a guaranteed trade. So it's best to understand that. So I just really wanted to just share that. It's something that you're going to need to know. So all right, so let's get to a character's blueprint. I really want to speak to this because it is very integral as far as I'm concerned in taking your character to the next level. And it's something that I don't believe a lot of players, even if you're an elite player, I don't believe that they're really doing all that much. And I feel that they're leaving a lot of things on the table. So I can utilize Eddie here since we already have him. So what do I mean by this? Okay, let's take Nina off of punish. So ultimately, what you really want to do is find an attack that is, whether it's a high attack, mid or low, that has similar frames. So let's say if we just find something, or let's say if we do up forward 4, right? Up forward 4 with Eddie, as you can see, is 22-24 frames, right? The first possible frame is 22. So does Eddie possess another 22 frame attack? Let's see. So he has this. That's close enough. Forward 3. So this is 21-22. So it hits on the 21st frame. So essentially, you can mix up between forward 3 and up forward 4 because they're only one frame apart. But does Eddie actually have an actual 22 frame attack? Let's see. All right, let's see. Does he? Okay, he does have this one. See, we have 21 frames here. 20 frames there. That's 14. It's 19. So you'll find that some characters don't have perfect frame mixes where either an attack high, mid, or low are the same frames. So for instance, we see Eddie has a 22 frame mid attack. Potential mix-up would be for his forward 3, which would be a 21 frame attack. So another mix you can utilize in this situation by looking at your character's moves is, we've established that forward 3 is 21 frames, can be paired up with up forward 4, which is 22 frames. But you can also utilize forward 4 because you're both doing a dashing motion. And so if you do it very quickly, which takes some practice, your opponent may not even see that you're doing a forward dash. So your opponent essentially has to guess the timing between the 21 frame low versus the 19 frame high. Now, if you take 19 away from 21, you're left with 2. That means you have 2 frames to differentiate between this and this, which could be very difficult, like next to impossible in my opinion, because there's not enough frames. If it was an attack that was like had like maybe 7 to 10 or more frames, that's where you could do something called a fuzzy guard, where you can kind of defend against one option, and then you can see that the secondary option is different, and you have enough time to make a different choice. But if your mix is very close with within each other frame wise, your opponent will have to commit to a particular decision, no matter what. Let me see if we can find another attack that's very similar. So if we look at, say, okay, this is another good example. If we do, and this involves a sidestep. So if we do sidestep 4 with Eddie, the startup for this is 21 frames, right? Now if we do standing both punches, it's a 20 frame attack. A way that you can utilize this as a potential mix is Eddie can still sidestep and do the attack. So now you're utilizing the sidestep both punches to set your opponent up to deliver your sidestep 4. Because your sidestep 4 is 21 frames. Well, it can hit on the 21st frame. So if your opponent is expecting, when you sidestepping, that you're going to do this move, you can surprise them with this instead. You know, especially on counter hit. If we set them to counter hit, you can see that this is very, very strong. You get a guaranteed crouch and grab and so on and so forth. In fact, you can actually do this as well if you wanna go that route. So you can do all of that. You can also do the new move. You could do that as a heat engager. So, you know, which is up back 1, or yeah, it's up 1 4. You can do that. So I think that's a good option. And like I showed you in the trade option, and well, this isn't a trade, but it just goes to show that when you have when this move lands on counterattack, you can see that this is plus 14, and the up 1 is 14 frames. So that's why this is able to work. But most Eddies will typically just go for the grab, the crouch and grab. They can do that. So it's up to you as the Eddie player. But, you know, typically this is what you're doing when you're looking to find attacks that work seamlessly between each other. In fact, let me go on over to Lee, because since I've made a video not that long ago talking about Lee Chaolan specifically, and there's so many people in the Lee community that they feel that Lee is absolute trash. I don't know. I can't agree with that sentiment, but you know, each to their own. So for instance, with Lee, again, we're gonna set up Nina to do her 1-2 punch. Okay, so now that she has all of that, so one of the I can't tell you how annoyingly frustrating it gets to listen to Lee players bitch and complain about their character. It just lets me know that they have not properly labbed their character. Even if they are a main with the character, if they were a true main, they would have figured this out, and I'm going to show you. So one of Lee's buffs is to forward 2, right? So as you can see, this is a 15 frame attack. It used to be slower. I think it was maybe 17 or 18. I don't know what it was prior, because I'm not a Lee main. But right now is all that matters. This is now a 15 frame attack. So your opponent now has to deal with this move versus this move. And as you can see, forward 3 is a 14 frame heat engaging attack, and it is safe on block. Of course, the League community are bitching and complaining that it doesn't have the pushback it used to. I did explain why that was in the prior video and in the comments section of that. So I'm not going to go down that road. But suffice to say, the main point is that the move is safe. That's all that matters. So basically, your opponent, Nina, in this situation, only has one frame to differentiate between this and this. Now, with this move, you can hold forward and Lee will follow up with a crouch dash. And as you can see, this is now +5. So that puts you as the defending player at a very bad situation, in a bad way, because now Lee can pretty much do anything from a 15 frame attack to trade potentially, or 14 frames and under, right? So that would mean that Lee could do forward 4 because that's an 11 frame attack, and then so basically we're going to show you what this looks like, right? So we're going to have her set to punish. There's the first counter hit. There's a second counter hit. We can do that. Lee's such a bad character, right? So, I mean, now, if your opponent is trying to now duck because they don't want to deal with this, oh, now you got to deal with a heat engager. So that's what I mean by properly labbing your character and utilizing the attacks your character has that is in line with a proper mix. Now, I've seen many people in the comment section in that Lee video mention that you cannot, something about doing moves in isolation. You know, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but to those people that may be watching this video, to you I say this. In order for you to properly lab your character, you have to look at moves in isolation. Just like I looked at forward 3 in isolation, and I can see that, okay, this is a 14 frame attack, it's safe, and it's a heat engager. And it has one additional active frame. Versus, I do forward 2, it's a tornado, it does 6 chip up to 10 if you do the just frame, like I just did just there. And it is +2 on block, and +5 if you hold forward, and it's 15 frames. So you see what I did there? I looked at each move in isolation. And now what do is, one move that was 15 frames is a mid. No, excuse me, it's a high that you can duck. And then the other move is 14 frames. It's a mid, and it's a move that you cannot duck. And it's safe. So this is where, if we set the second action to Nina as being crouching block. So she's going to block here, and then she's going to duck. So if we do this, see we did that? Now, in order for the Nina player to react to defend against this move, she has to preemptively duck. You're not going to see a 15 frame attack on reaction. It's impossible. It's impossible. You're not Neo like you're in the Matrix. You're not going to see the thing coming and then just move out the way. It doesn't work like that in any fighting game. So you have to already be crouching. You have to make a hard read. So this is what happens. If you're going to do this, I do that, and you get hit with a heat engager. Now, if you didn't duck, you're still safe. So it doesn't really matter. So this is where, when you look at those moves in isolation, when you put them together, when you form them together, that's where you get the strategy of the character. And whenever I refer to the blueprint of the character, it is utilizing the moves in isolation that the developer buffed or just has as they are, and utilize them in tandem. Now, how well you use them is dependent on your own IQ and how well you can make your reads against your opponent. Depending on that will determine how successful these scenarios will be for you. Because maybe after the first jab, your opponent is going to make a hard read and go and duck. Maybe instead you are going to do forward 2. Perhaps another person would have done forward 3 in the situation, and they would have got the hit. But regardless, Because forward forward 3 is still safe and it's a heat engager, it is designed to be utilized in tandem with forward forward 2. This is the reason why Namco buffed the speed of the move and also granted the Lee player 6 chip damage up to 10 if you're able to do the actual just frame. And then Lee also has the added benefit of being in heat to where now the actual attack will take 10 regardless. So, this is why I can't sympathize with Lee players to say, oh, their character is X, Y, and Z. It's bad because it just lets me know they have not properly labbed their character and they're not using their character to their fullest. They're not. Now, this is where I say people might say, well, okay, well, I can just sidestep, right? So I can just sidestep, no problem. We can sidestep, right? So we're gonna have Nina sidewalk, right? So after the first attack, right, you see she moved out the way. She moved out the way. 4-4-3. So she sidestepped both options. Okay, so if you know your opponent is going to do all of that, if you know your opponent is going to do all of this, very simple. You know what you do? Tracking move. Every character has it. And much like I said in the Lee video, and this is very important, is if this move lands, you are +3. And Lee is in a while standing position situation. So the next move Lee does is going to be from a while standing position, whereas the opponent is still standing. That's why Nina's retaliation is her 10 frame jab. This sets up this. All you got to do is just go and cycle through all of Lee's attacks that will win out in that situation. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. Because as Lee, you are in this crouching state. If she is retaliating, sure, while standing 1 is going to trade. While standing 2 is going to get beat out because while standing 2 is 14 frames and it's not enough frame advantage for you to take advantage of. Now you can do while standing 4, you can do while standing 3. However, if you want to just simply do fully crouch down forward 4, that's going to land on counterattack. And then that's guaranteed. So, you have options. And then, a Lee player will probably say, well, it's -14. Like, you can't win. Like, if all you're going to do is look at the downside of everything, then of course, in your mind, the character Lee, or any other character for that matter, is going to be bad. But you have to understand that there are going to be some characters that excel at certain things and other characters don't. For instance, in a situation like that, my character Raven, his fully crouched down forward 3 is Aqua Spider. That move is going to be -9. It's -9. Versus Lee's full crouch down forward 4 is -14. So, but then again, Lee has better standard rush down than Raven does. So it just, you have to play to your character's strengths. Lee was not designed to have amazing low attacks. The low attacks that Lee has are set to draw to make your opponent throw something so you can get counterattacks. That's what they're for. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't want to go too far into this section, but it's all related with frames and understanding and such. But I just want that to be perfectly clear. So let's see, what else could I go toward? So another thing is understanding. While we're here with Lee, this attack right here. Generally, a lot of characters have little low attacks that are very unassuming. They don't do much damage. Just to kind of show you, this is a low attack that Lee has that is not launch punishable. It is -12. However, this attack, it only does 12 damage, and as you can see, it is -1, right? This is a -1 attack. So you might be saying, so what's the point of using this move? The point of using this move is that this move facilitates so much. It's like a setup. It's almost like a jab, but it's a low kick. Because if you see your opponent is very quick to react like this, then you know, one, you could do a high crush. So with Lee, you could probably go for down 3 right after, and it's gonna connect on counter hit for whatever follow up, whatever other move that you wish to do. You can also utilize your counter, right? You can do that. You can utilize your armor attack if you want. There's many different options you can utilize. You can also sidestep, and which is also going to give you different opportunities depending. See, it says punish. Now some characters you just have to figure out which direction you wish to sidestep, but these are good moves to utilize, again in isolation, to set up additional attacks. So that's why if you see an attack that is neutral or -1, -3, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a bad attack. It just means that is an attack. It's like a setup move. It's not meant to be crippling damage. It's not meant for that. It's meant to elicit a response out of your opponent that you, as the offensive player, you're noting, okay, after I land this attack, they're pressing buttons. Every time I land this attack, right? I do all my moves, boom, bap, bap, bap. I land this move, they're retaliating. Okay, so now I know this, and I take advantage of that. Or I know this, and I step and launch them, and do whatever combo. So this is how you can draw out certain things from your opponent just by doing very non-committal attacks. Now you can do the same thing with your standard jabs, right? Like for instance, if they block it, like even going back to the very beginning of the video where I say if you do a jab and you do another jab, you're at plus. Well then, because you're +1, you can also sidestep and just do the same thing. If you see that there are mashing after you throw certain attacks, like even down forward 1. Down forward 1 on block is -1, which is amazing. What you can do using down back 3 on hit, and it's +1, you can also do the same options if your down forward 1 is blocked. So much like I can do down back 3 and down 3 counter hit, I can also do the same thing with down forward 1. Same exact thing. I can sidestep and launch. I can down forward 1 and launch. Sidestep and launch. So you can apply this to any character, and this is where understanding your frame data is very key. Not only in understanding when it is your turn and you can either go for an attack, right? You're +1, right? And you just do your own 1-2, you can get your hit. But you can also choose to just step off the track. Now, of course, your opponent can then simply, if they know you're doing that, that's where they'll do their tracking move. So it becomes this like I know that you know that I know that I know, and so on, right? So it just depends on your own ability as a player. But all I can do, or any other person that gives this information, is to give you the tools, and what you do with those tools is entirely up to you. So that's really what it comes down to. So what else could I actually show here? So another thing that I like in relation to finding, and I think I covered this with Eddie Gordo, finding moves that have the same startup in terms of frames. And with Lee, I actually discovered this. Now it is a bit risky, but I do feel it's viable, and that is Lee's slide. If you notice, let me take her off of punish, and I want you to pay close attention to this. In fact, I might go into photo mode and advance it frame by frame. Now, if you notice the slide, That's tap forward and hit both kicks. The frame data says what? It shows 25 frames. That's the earliest frame it's going to connect. And it's +5 on hit. Now, unfortunately, it is -15. But if you manage to make contact with this move on counter hit, let's see. You do knock your opponent down. I think, do you get a follow-up? I think you get a follow-up. I think you get a follow-up. Now, what's interesting about this move, if you look at the beginning animation, right? Let's look at this again. We're gonna, hold on. Let me see if I can get it. Okay, so let's go to photo mode, and we're advancing this. So you see, this is the early stages. So there's a slide. Now I'm going to show you another move that Lee has that is also 25 frames, and that is up forward 3. Now up forward 3, let's take him off of counter hit. Let's take him off counter hit. So up forward 3 is also 25 frames, but it can land on the 26th. Now if you notice, the beginning frames of this move is very similar to the slide. If you know it, look at that. It's very similar to the slide. Very similar. So you can use that to your advantage. And the thing that makes this so good is that you have 2 follow-ups for this attack. You have 2 follow-ups. You have up forward 3-1, which ends up being +3. Or you have up forward 3-4, which will actually give you a full combo, depending on how good you are as a Lee player. You can, this does come with a degree of risk. You know, it is possible for your opponent to duck this so if they block the first, they can duck the second. However, if you instead do left punch version, your opponent will take the hit. Now, if they happen to block this move, it is only -12. That's kind of like a slap on the wrist. You can risk that. So for your opponent to not eat this, they're going to tend to remain standing a lot of times. And so this is where you can get the actual high kick. And of course, as you can see, the high kick is -3. It's completely safe. The beauty of this is that if this kick lands, the follow-up are guaranteed. Doesn't matter. As I showed, see? So if we put her to duck after the second attack, see how she ducks? She ducks, but she won't be able to duck this. It's natural. It's natural on hit. So if you really are crafty with it, you can mix this up. And also the great thing is that you can do both of these moves from his crouch dash, like this. So tap forward, both kicks, tap forward, up forward 3. There's no way that you cannot say that these moves are not designed to be used together. They come out at the exact same frame, and they have the exact same startup animation up until a point. So this is why I say, learn your character, take your character in the lab, and look at every single thing about your character's attack. Look at the animation, look at the startup frames, what's on block, what's on reward, what have you. And you will slowly figure out, well, I hope you will, figure out the blueprint of your character. So let me go over to another character that I've heard some people complain about, which is Steve Fox. And I was thinking about making a video about Steve, but I think I'll cover this part right here at least. So let's stick with Nina, as I already have her set up with attacks. I think I'm coming close to the end of the video, so thank you for everybody that's still tuning in, listening. So one of the things, and I've seen this from a main man video at the time of this recording, which is April 25th, 2025 at 2:22 in the morning here in New York, is Steve does not have the ability to loop his punches, right? Because he goes into Lionheart afterwards. And I believe Main Man found an issue that a lot of the moves that Steve has places him in Lionheart. You know, of course, in I think in every case, if you hold the opposite direction, holding back, you cancel the Lionheart stance, right? So just like if you do Peekaboo, I think he didn't like that if you do Peekaboo 2, it takes him and puts him into Lionheart. Well, if you do Peekaboo 2 and hold back, it keeps him, it takes him out of Peekaboo, yes, but it keeps him in neutral. So I guess if you really want to go back into Peekaboo, you could just simply, it's not going to be smooth, but you could just do Peekaboo 2, hold back, and just go right back into Peekaboo. It takes a little time to get used to, but it's possible. So see? Peekaboo, this. So it takes a so to kind of loop it, you know, you just have to just drill it, and eventually you'll get the timing. So but in this situation, if we look at this hook punch, right, as you see, you're +5, right, and you're in Lionheart. Now with Lionheart, the best option here would be Lionheart 1, right? Because Lionheart 1 is going to come out in 14 frames, and it is completely safe on block and -9. So what that looks like is if I do the hook punch and Nina presses buttons, that will connect. So let's put her on punish, right? This is where knowing your frames and counts, but also understanding a character's blueprint. So here we go. We do this, the hook punch. She mashes, we get a free heat engager. Now let's say if she's respecting the Lionheart 1 and she's just standing there, that now you have a vortex situation. You have this, and if you look, that chip damage is coming off. Now, of course, what Nina could do is she could duck. She could duck, right? She could do that. But this is where if you're a Steve Fox player and you know that's going to happen, you could just do this. You could just do that. Or you could just do this. Now, why would you do this? Very simple. See, this comes with a degree of risk because this is -14. So if your opponent makes the defensive read, your opponent will get a 14 frame punish. However, if you choose to play it safe as a Steve user, you can instead just do ducking 1 instead, and that's -7, keeping you safe, as opposed to doing ducking 2. And this is actually the reason why ducking 1 and ducking 2 are both the exact same startup frames. As you can see, they're both 19. They're both 19 frames. So that's why Namco gives you the same startup frame animation to, you know, in the event of catching an opponent that's looking to duck this hook punch, to where now they're potentially ducking into a 19 frame attack. But if you want to play it safe as a Steve Fox user, you can instead just do the ducking 1. Now you may not get much out of it. You'll get this. You're still getting 17 damage, and it's +58 on knockdown, so you're able to still pressure your opponent on wake up. Or if you want to go and bet, you know, go for the home run, you can instead just do ducking 2, get your launch, but just know you're risking a 14 frame punish. So that's why I say you have to understand the blueprint of the character. Now let's take this a step further, right? Now you have Steve doing up back 2, right? Now this is a 17 frame high that tracks, and you're +5, which basically puts you in the same position as if you did the ducking 2 like this, because it's also +5. So you're left with the same scenario of if your opponent is mashing buttons, right? And we're going by the frame data, mashing buttons, Lionheart 1. If you mash buttons off of this attack, heat engager. It's the same exact scenario. The only difference is that this ducking one is not a tracking attack and it's 15 frames versus this is a tracking attack, but it comes out at 17, but it's high. So let's look at, okay, well, what if my opponent is ducking? So let's go. This is where you find out how to properly, again, this is how you properly lab your character and discover your character's blueprint. So if I jab, she's gonna duck, right? So if I jab, do the hook punch, right, up back 2, because I want to have that +5. You know what other move from Steve Fox is 17 frames? Back 2, that's 17 frames. So this is 17, this is 17, that's also 17, down 2. Oh, up 2 is also 17 frames. So again, much like the scenario between ducking 1 and ducking 2, understanding what type of frame disadvantage you may be at if the move is blocked, it's the same situation here. So for instance, if we know Nina is looking out for this move, it's a 17 frame high that's tracking, we know that we also have back 2, that's 17 frames. So what that means is that if she's looking to duck this, she's going to take that. And if you're hit with this, free Sonic Fang, because on contact, you are +14 with Steve. So that means, again, if we go back to our video on frames, right? If you are +14, you look at what move with Steve do I have that's 14 frames and under. Sonic Fang is 14. We can also do down forward 1-2 if we want. We can do a lot. We can do standing 2-2. We can do back 1-2, which is actually, in my opinion, pretty good because it puts you back into Lionheart for you to do another vortex setup. So you can just do that. And now she has to guess at this point, and she's back in that same situation. So it really is up to you. It's up to you what type of 14 frame follow-up you want to do. But again, this is where you're piecing the moves together in isolation, right? So if you know Nina does not want to deal with this move and you figure, okay, I know she's probably going to look out for this move because she does not want to get that +5 disadvantage. So she's looking to duck. So if I know that, I'm going to do that. But you know what else I can do? I can do Steve's new up 2 and go for my launch. The difference here to pay in mind is that this move here is -15. So basically the dev's reasoning or logic behind this is if you're going to go for a launch, and also this move is a high crush, by the way, so it has the added ability to counteract an opponent's 10 frame standard attacks, right? So Nina is going to come and attack right after. So if I do up 2, that's a high crush every time. So right now we're going to go into photo mode. So you're going to see. So you see she's about to do the 1-2. She doesn't want to look at that. Sure you can. Look at that. Sure you can. I had to do that, sorry. So yeah, but in order to balance that, this is the reason why they made this move do less damage, because it does less damage when you perform this move outside of the peekaboo stance. Like if you do this move in peekaboo, you'll notice it's still 17 frames, but it does 23 damage. And it has so basically it is the same frames. It's going to be launch punishable, but because you've done it out of the peekaboo stance, it's going to take more damage as an incentive for you to use it while in the stance, as opposed to you just having instant access to it from just in neutral That's why the move does less damage out in neutral and only is doing 14 damage. But so you have to so this is where you as a player you have to weigh, do I want to attempt to high crush my opponent and get the launch for full combo at the risk of my opponent making the read and blocking it and launching me, or do I want to instead still stay with a 17 frame move, be a little bit safer with back two, because back two is only minus 13, but it's not a high crush. So you as the player, you have to understand, what moves do what in isolation, right? And then you piece them together accordingly. And this is how you pretty much get into your character's blueprint. Another thing that I want to say is, so just to recap, in fact, scratch it. Let me just recap this. So let's take her off punish. And again, you can do this. This is just Steve's on the screen right now. You can do this with every character. Just go in the lab and go through your character's moves and look at the startup frames, whether it's a high, mid, or low. And then once you find, like say for instance, this is a 17 frame low, right? The down to is 17 frames for Steve. Well, I can mix that with a 17 frame mid or a 17 frame high. Now, of course, the 17 frame high is going to be, both options are going to be eliminated, right? So if we do this, we try to do the 17 frame homing and the 17 frame low, ducking is gonna beat both options, right? Because you're gonna duck the high and you're gonna block the low. This is where you would have now two 17 frame options that's mid, whether depending on what you're willing to risk. Are you willing to risk a launch? Are you going to risk being launched in trying this, or you're going to play it a little bit safe and do this move instead? Because they're all 17, as you can see on the screen, the attack startup frame. So up back 2 is 17, back 2 is 17, down 2 is 17. So there you go. Now, of course, you don't need the moves to be the exact same frames, but it does make that mix airtight, so that if Nina is looking to duck this, she's going to already be crouching. Your opponent is already going to be, if they feel you're going to do this, they're already going to be ducking. In fact, that's another strategy you can use to test the waters on your opponent, is do an attack, right? Do, a single strike attack and see how they respond. Did they press a button? Did they duck? Are they sidestepping? Did they do an armor move? So you will understand, okay, this is what they're looking to do back to me. This is their reaction. Now, if they stand there and don't do anything, this is where you can probably test the waters and try a slower frame move, because you've kind of already got a sense that your opponent is not going to mash buttons. But if they're the type to just if they're an absolute nut and they're just going to throw something back every time, okay, run the risk and go for the home run, right? Sometimes this doesn't work. I guess it's kind of weird. All right, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's not very consistent, but it does have high crush properties. Or you can just go for down 2, right? That's a high crush, right? You can also go down back 2. That's also high crush, even though it comes out at 26 frames, but it does have high crush properties. So it's up to you, right? As the player in piecing the moves together. So I'm hoping that everything that I showed you today resonates and relates to you. I guess what I can tell you about just active frames and punishment, let's go over to Paul, because I did explain that in a live stream one time. The best way I found to showcase what active frames mean. I'm looking for Paul. Okay, here we go. So let's go back to Paul. Yeah, we'll keep it on Nina. We'll keep it on Nina for now.
Get ready for the next battle.
So when it comes to moves that you may notice that has and throughout this video, you probably, if you're looking at the frame advantage, you'll probably been seeing, oh well, that move says 12, but it says another number, right? So for instance, Paul's right kick is 12-12, but his left kick is 15-16, and even more extreme, his forward 4 is 27 through dash 34. So what that second number means, the 34, it means that is the additional frames this move is live for. So this move could pretty much land anywhere between 27 and 34. So as you saw right there, I was able to land it at the 34th frame. It's very hard to get it on the final frame. It's very hard. Very hard. But if you are able to get on that 34th frame, it's very good. But the further you land it, you notice that the frame advantage changes. So at the 29th frame, it was +4. Oh, I almost got, see, look at that. The 34th frame, the 33rd frame, it was +8. I don't know if I'm gonna get it any better than that. Let me see. Let's try it. Nah, this is very difficult. Hold on, let me see. That's the 30th frame. So on the 30th frame, it becomes +5. Yeah, so I'm not gonna try it, but you get the point. So when you land the move later on in its animation, in its frame, the frame advantage properties will change. So let's say if the move is -9, but it has 2 active frames, right? So let's say if the move was 13-15 and it's -9. If you manage to make contact with that attack on the 15th frame, in the last frame, the move will now become +2. So it'll go from -9 to now +2. It's like a number line. I suck at math, but that's basically how it works, right? So it's very key to understand what that means. It tends to be more prevalent in Street Fighter games and two-dimensional games, but Namco, you know, it is in the game and in Tekken 8, so you might want to just at least have an understanding of it. So if you're looking at a move and you're like, why does it say 15 and another number? It just means that it can land on that. The second number means it is possible to make contact on that additional frame. Coincidentally, that is what makes Lee's back 4 such an annoying panic move, because while Lee's back 4 is 20 frames, because it has 2 additional active frames, those are 2 extra frames that kick is live. So if you press anything into it while Lee is doing a back 4, you will be connected on counter hit, and he'll take you from here to the next galaxy. So that's why understanding certain key things can go a long way. Now for punishment is kind of easy. It's pretty much like for instance, if I do something with Paul and I'm -15, what is something I'm -15? Okay, so let's say if I do this kick, you see how I am -17? That means if you look on the second player side, now you see that Nina is +17. So that means that Nina can do a 17 frame attack. So let's look at Nina here. So Nina could do down forward 2. She could do full. So basically, like the same thing. She can do pretty much whatever. Now she would not be able to do down back both kicks because that comes out at 18 frames, and Paul is only Paul is only -17, so it has to be a 17 frame and lower. So this is where ideally you probably will just do a down forward 2, because Paul is -17, down forward 2 is 15, and you get a free punish. So in fact, let's just show this in real time. We're gonna put him back to offense. We're gonna put the punishment now to just her doing down forward 2, as you're gonna see here. So now we're gonna do that same attack, Let's put her over to punish. I forgot I turned that off. So we're gonna have her punish. He's gonna do the kick, and you see it says punish. Same thing. So if I do an attack that is, see now you see a hop kick, I'm minus 13. I'm actually, I cannot be launched from that, right? Now she could punish me, but she would have to utilize a 13 frame attack and under to punish that. Versus if I were to just do this, I'm completely safe because you can see not only I have pushback, but I'm also minus 7. Same thing with this, even better example. Right kick, I'll block the down forward too because I'm minus 7. But if I do 4-4-3, I'm minus 17. I'm gonna get sent into the sky. So that's basically rounds out just general punishment. So I do hope that some of you benefited from this video. It was a lot to cover. I hope I did a decent job. And again, I'm open to comments on this video or any other video. My comment section is always open. Hopefully you found value in this video related to you. If it did, and like I said at the very beginning of the video, if you are not already subscribed, I hope that by the end of this video, right now, I earned your subscription. I hope so. So I'm trying to get to that next level of monetization. Help a brother out, and let's level up together. Anyway, with that being said, I'm out. This is Red. Peace.